Welcome back, everybody, to Just Keep Parenting. Thank you for joining us again for another episode. Today we're going to talk about learning readiness. If you've been with us the past little bit, we've been talking about Mr. Rogers. I have an opportunity this year to be a part of the Mr. Rogers cohort, and so I've been learning and studying more about him and his teachings, and wanted to share that with you on this video. So today we're going to talk about learning readiness, and I thought this vignette was a nice introduction to what we're going to visit about. Everyone said it was important to read to my child, so I brought out the usual children's books. My 4-year-old son wouldn't sit and listen to them. The only thing he was interested in was hockey. His preschool teacher suggested that I look for a book about hockey players. So I went to the library and brought home one book about his favorite player. I started to read to him, and he wouldn't let me stop. We finished a whole chapter that afternoon, and he wanted me to keep on reading, right? So as we think about learning readiness for children, what does that look like? Many times, I have parents who are concerned that their children aren't reading at age 3 or age 4 or even age 5, right? But we have to remember that they have an internal clock. They have an internal rhythm that happens. Just like they learn to crawl, just like they learn to walk, when they're ready, most children will learn to read. And so our job as the adults in the children's lives is to help them be ready for that moment, right? And so they're born ready to learn, right? They're born ready to learn. They use all their senses to learn from the very beginning of their life. They put things together, they move them around, they experiment, they explore, and they discover, right? So as we think about learning through play, one of the things that I remember years ago, I had a parent and she said, "So I think you're doing your job right." And I'm like, "What are we doing?" And she's like, "I said to my child, what did you work on today? What did you learn today?" And the little girl said to her, "Mom, we don't learn at school. We just play." Right? And I love the fact that as children come into the classroom, that's what they're doing. As they answer the question of the day, I'll say, "All right, where are you going to go play today?" Right? Because that's how they learn. A child's work is their play. So as we think about this quote that he said, while children may look like they're just playing, they are also working on some of the basic things they'll need in order to be able to read, write, and do math lessons later on. What's more, they're learning about these things in a way that's natural and interesting for them, right? So many times I've watched kids. I have a child this year who comes in and he loves marbles. We only had a few marbles out, so we got more marbles out. But he will come in and he has a lid that has a hole in it that he's gotten from somewhere in the classroom. And he uses it, he takes the lid and goes back and forth as the marbles go through the hole, right? Then one day I see him doing it on his face. He has the lid on his face. And he's taking the marble and he's putting it up and trying to move his head so that the marble will come down in. Amazing things, right? I watch him and I just think, wow, there are some really great engineering concepts that are going on in a preschool classroom with him. So as they learn about more and less, different and similar, top and bottom, right? These are those skills that they're going to need later on. When children pretend and play, they're learning those kinds of skills. So children don't learn in fragmented bits of information, right? Their body, their everything is integrated in. So they need to have their play integrated, right? It's not about science. It's not about math. We're learning about all of it today. Mr. Rogers goes on to say, in those kinds of everyday ways, children develop one of the most essential tools for school readiness, a sense that the world is an interesting place. That's our job as adults, to help these children feel like the world is an interesting place. If we can do that, then they're ready for school. They're ready to learn. He also goes on and talks about the tools, right? Because some of these kids will spend hours looking at a bug crossing the way, right? The little boy that I was talking about with the timer, with the marbles, he also loves timers. We have 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, and 10-minute timers. He will sit and do that for an hour. He'll set the timers up, he'll put them on top of each other, he'll spread them out. And I'll say to him, "Dude, what are you doing there with the timers?" And he's like, "Miss Story, I'm trying to figure out which one's going to finish first." I'm like, "So how are you figuring that out?" And he'll say to me, "Just watch, Miss Story. Just watch. And that's been such a lesson to me, right? Just watch. Just watch children. Just watch what their interests are. Just watch how they connect with others. So many lessons have been taught to me by just watching. So he talks about some tools to learning, right? The first thing that he talks about is what they need is to feel good about who they are and what they can do. One of the things that we don't, that we're pretty good at doing as adults is telling them what they can't do. But we need to be telling them what they can do. So that's one of the things that we focus on here in the Teacher Training Center is what can they do? They also need to be able to stick to a task, deal with their mistakes, use their imaginations, accept rules and limits, be curious about the world around them, and get along with others. Those are the readiness tools that as we look at readiness, those are the things that are going to help children be successful. This week coming up, we're going to have an imaginative box play in dramatic play. So we're going to set it up with tools, right? We're going to have boxes of tools so that they can have scissors, they can have markers, they can have tape, they can have pipe cleaners, they can have paper with boxes. We're not going to have anything else there besides all types of boxes, and let them do what they can do with those boxes and the tools that we've laid out for them. We want them to be imaginative, right? As he talked about dealing with their mistakes. Yesterday we had a little girl come in and she was just crying, and I asked the student teacher to go out and get the child who had made the little girl cry. And while she was doing that, I said to the little girl, so what happened? And she said, well, he accidentally hit me with the blue thing. And I said, oh, so it was an accident. And we know that accidents happen, don't we? Yeah, but it still hurt. You're right. And by this time, the little boy was here. And I said, buddy, she said that there was an accident out on the playground. And you could see he was just like, I know. And I said, so what we need to do is we need to all have eyes in the back of our heads, don't we? And he looked at me and he said, what? And I said, well, if we had eyes in the back of our heads, then we could see everything and we wouldn't have to have accidents. And he kind of lightened up a little bit. And I said, sometimes I wish I had eyes in the back of my head too, because I need to see everything, but we can't. But what we can do is those people that we've hurt, we can go take care of them. And I said, that's what we're here to do today, is to take care of her. I said, so sweetie, what can he do to make you feel better? And she's leaning into me and she said, I just want him to call my mom. And I kind of giggled and I said, do you have a phone? He giggled. He said, no. She started giggling and she said, oh, that's right. I said, so we can't call your mom right now, but what can he do to make you feel better, right? And she said to him, okay, well, then just don't do it again. I said, can you do that? He said, yeah. Right? We were laughing, we were giggling, and all was well, right? But helping them to understand that those moments happen in life, but we can make them better by how we treat each other. The other thing that when he talked about accepting rules and limits, right? It goes back to the rule of three that we've talked about. There's a video a few years ago called The Rule of Three, where we talk about stating the expectation again with the consequence, and then following through. So this week we had a couple of girls at the carpet, bless their little hearts. They were so excited to see each other, right? They hadn't seen each other for 4 weeks during the break, and they got a little sassy at the carpet. So I just said to them, ladies, you're welcome to sit there and listen if you can, right? If you can't listen, then you'll need to move. So I stated this consequence, right? And then we didn't have to follow through with it. But it was a great teaching moment for my teachers, a learning moment for them to be able to understand how the rule of three works. So they have to know that we do have to accept the consequences of our actions, right? Be curious about the world around them. We've talked about the marbles and the timers, right? And then being able to stick to a task. We have a poster in the classroom that talks about we can do hard things. And so we have 5 things to help us stick to that task, right? Do you need to go get a drink? Do you need to have a little break, right? Do you need to watch me do it for a minute so then you can do it, right? And so as we help our children do these things, they're going to be ready to learn, ready for school. When we give children opportunities to play, we are giving them hands-on ways to develop those tools for learning. right? So I love the fact that we have teachable moments with kids, right? Young children aren't able to share yet. That's not online yet, right? And so when they try to work things out, they get frustrated, right? They come up against this. It's not a time for discipline. It's a time for teaching them how to do that. And I love the fact that Mr. Rogers always gives helpful hints, right? He says, talk about things that were hard for you to do when you were a child, right? Helping them understand, yeah, I get it, right? Been there, done that. When you talk about a problem that you're dealing with at home and work, try not to complain about it. Try to talk about how you're problem solving it and not just complaining. Give your child responsibilities, right, that he or she can handle. Right? Not hard things. Sometimes we have to break it up. At school and at home, when we say clean your room or we say clean up the block center, what does that mean? That's like overwhelming to me as an adult, let alone a child, right? Okay, so you want to pick up the big blocks or the little blocks? Do you want to pick up your stuffed toys or the cars, right? Helping them break it down to doable tasks. And then just setting aside time to snuggle with a book, snuggle with your child, right? They may not remember that, but they'll remember the feeling that they felt. When you're reading a book, give your child opportunities to ask questions and talk about the book, talk about the pictures, talk about the words, right? And the last one he talks about is it's okay if your child asks for the book over and over and over again. The adult gets tired of it. I'm going to put that book away, right? We deal with that in the school as well. But I love how he says this: pretend reading is an important step towards actual reading, and it can help your child feel successful at being able to read a book. We have a lot of pretend reading going on, right? And it's great. I'll say to them, you know how to read that book. Let's look at the words, right? So as we think about learning readiness, what are you doing in your life today to help children be ready to learn? How are you helping them to feel good about what they can do at this point in their life? Thanks for joining us. Pass this along if you'd like to. Appreciate you helping out today.